And I'm Saketh.
And we're going to present a work design workshop for you guys today.
Okay. So to make an effective web page or the web pages you see on a daily basis, you need to know three specific languages, and that's HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. For HTML is what puts content on the web pages. So any text or images that you have, that's what HTML takes care of. But it's not going to look very nice, and that's where CSS comes in. And CSS has to do everything with style. So if you want to change your color of certain things, your fonts, or modify the look of certain tags or div classes, that's where you would use CSS. And JavaScript is deals with anything that deals with like function. So, for example, if you go onto a HackPSU website right now, you would see like a countdown timer, and you would see like the stars moving in the background. Those are all functions that JavaScript takes care of. But today, we're just going to focus on the HTML and CSS sections, and that will probably help you understand how to make a basic web page. So moving on, um, so how does HTML work? So HTML is any document that has a .html file or an HTML extension, and it usually has this global structure that is seen in this slide. Every page in HTML consists of a series of tags, and these tags make up the basic syntax for HTML. And you can think of tags as like the building blocks of a website. And almost every HTML elements have an opening tag and a closing tag. Here you can see the structure of an HTML website. You have your opening and closing HTML tags that signify that it's an HTML page. Then you have your head tags, which have your title of your web page, and then you have your body tags, and that's where within the body tags, that's where all your content and of your website goes, and it just everything that's in the body tag shows up on the web page. And so there are there's two classification of tags. There's a block level tag and there's an inline tag. So understanding the difference between these tags are important because they'll help you better understand the structure of a web page and how it's displayed. So block level tags are any tags that go that take up the full width of the page from left to right. Visually, I this is how it would look like with all the colors. So each color is a separate block level tag, and to the right, I've shown how a code for this might look like. A div tag is the block level tag, and I gave it the class name of red block. And then within the div tag, I have an inline tag that writes that this is the red section, and you can see that displayed on the left. And then you also have inline tags, and these inline tags are basically elements that don't start a new line in HTML, and they only take up as much space as it needs to. Um, Visually, based on the our block level tag, this is how inline tags would look like. Some examples are like the paragraph tags that I shown in the last one with the red section. That's an inline tag. Images are inline tags, and yep, that's it. And then yep. So moving on, I'd like to go over some CSS elements. And so you can establish CSS in three ways. Um, you can do it inline, and with CSS and inline tag, it allows you to apply a unique style to one HTML element at a time. So in an example of this is here, I have an inline tag for a paragraph, and with the style, I give it the style attribute in the inline tag, and I have it set to the color gray. So the text that will show up on my website will come with the color gray. You can do it internally in a separate style section, and these style tags go in the head element of a website, and then you can refer a another you can refer another element on the website. So here I have the body, anything that goes in the body tag, I have it set I have the color set, the background color set to powder blue. So on the website, anything that's in the body tag would be in the background color blue. Or you can have it in a separate CSS style sheet. And basically, what this does is you create a separate document with a .css extension, and then have your CSS in that web page, in that page, and then you can link it into the head element of your HTML file. And an example of how that would look like is here in the bottom. I gave some code. And yeah, so moving on for the CSS, you can do it through two ways. You can do it by tag or you can do it by classes. Here's an example of how it would be with a tag. Um, so there's a p tag and that paragraph tag. Anything that goes in the paragraph tag would give, it has the color attribute of brown. So anything that's in the p tag would be in the color brown. And then moving on to the next slide, you can do it with two tags at the same time. So here the OL and UL tags, when you refer in the style sheet, you can just have the OL comma UL and then have the line height of those tags set to 1.5. And another way you can refer to the tags in CSS is by classes. Um, so if you want to do it by class, all you do in the HTML is give your tag a class name such as mobile. So in your style sheet or um, your internal CSS, you just refer to the class by having a dot and the class name, and then any attributes that you want in a set of open or closed brackets. So here, the mobile class has a font weight of, it has, I'm bolding the text in the class name mobile. And yeah, and here, like the previous example, you can have it, um, you can refer it like you can refer multiple classes at the same time by just having like the dot mobile and having another set of dot and then the class name. So here I'm setting the classes of mobile and intro with a bold font and an italic font respectively. And yeah.
Okay, now we're going to talk about spans. So spans are very useful if you want to have your whole paragraph be something similar, but in the middle you want to change something. So for example, this one says 12% of Americans who eat pizza say that their favorite topping is pineapple. And then say we wanted the next part to say something different, but we didn't want to create a whole new paragraph to say that. So we can just plop span right in and set the style to a different color and a different font weight. And this one says, are you one of them? And now after you end that span, we are back to the regular paragraph, font and color, and it says pineapples are good, but are they good on pizza? So this is something useful that you can do. Next, we're going to talk about the CSS box model. And the purpose of having the box model is that we can control how much spacing we want between things and like outside the element. So two visible things that we can see are the content, which is in the blue box. This is all the text and images that you want the viewer to see. Another very visible thing is the border, which is actually the yellow box right here. And that sometimes can be white, but you can also customize it to be different colors and styles. And that's just the outer lining of your content, so people know where it stops. Now, the two things that control spacing are the padding, which is in the green here. So this controls how much space is between your text or your images and the border outside of it. And then finally, we have the margin, which is the spacing around the outside of the whole element. And this controls also how much space is between this element and the ones next to it. So for example, right here, we have the content in this box right here. And then we can add a border. Now, most of the times the border is actually white, but you can customize it to be different colors, and you can even customize it to be a different thickness like this. So this black box shows where the border begins and where it ends. And outside of that, we have the margin, which as previously said is how much space is between this element right here and something next to it. And to talk about padding, if you can visualize another one of these teal words squeezed right between the text here and the start of the border, if you can visualize the text right there, that is how much padding you have. So let's talk a little bit about what these things can do for us. For the border, we can select the style. So you can have a solid border, dotted border, or dash border, and there are so many more that you can like reference. And then you do not have to have the same border style all around. You can customize it. So if you wanted one part to be different, you would just explicitly say that one of these you want to be different. You can also change the border color, and you can do this with the color name or the RGB or the hex. You can customize the border width, for example, in pixels. And we also have border radius, which allows you to round the edges of your border. And you can also do this with pixels. Now for spacing, as we said, there's padding and margin, but I'm going to talk about margin for now. If we have one value for margin, that just controls everything to like the top, right, bottom, and left. If you have two values, then the first value will dictate how much space you have above and below your element, and the second value will dictate how much space you have to the left and to the right of your element. If you have three values, then the first one is the top, second one is left and right, and the third one is below. And finally, if you have four, then it goes, you start at the top and you go in a clockwise direction. So top is 20, right is 40, bottom is 60, and left is 80. However, I think that if you have all four values different, personal preference, you can do whatever you want. But at this point, it might just be easier and less confusing to just list out margin top, margin right, margin bottom, and margin left. So now we're going to talk about some good web design practices. And for this one, I'm going to ask you guys to help me. So we're going to play a game called Can't Unsee, and I'm just going to ask Anish,
It is voices enabled for the attendees.
So don't be shy. Just tell me what you think the answer would be. All right, so how we play this game is there are two design options, one on the left and one on the right, and you'll just tell me which one you think looks more correct. Saketh, do you want to give the first answer to get the ball rolling?
Yeah, the left one.
Okay, and the way this game works is that there's going to be a description here and you're able to compare the before and after. Also, I would really like you guys to help me. I don't want to just like sit here in silence. So awkward.
Or you can use the chat also if you would like.
Okay. So someone said right, and that is correct. And I'll just do this one. This one is also the right. That was just a tutorial. Okay, so let's get started. Between left and right, left, that is correct. That's because the search is capitalized. Left, yep. The photo aspect ratio. This one might be a little bit more subtle, but I'm sure you can find it. Left, that is because of the icon size. Yes. You're doing great. What about this one? right? Yep, you can see this one is like more icon contrast. You're killing it. Okay. We'll like finish this round and then we'll keep on going. For this one, it's the right one because of capitalization. So we're starting to see a few trends. Like we really like consistency here. Let's see for this one. Yeah, left. Okay. I think this one might be a little subtle too. What do you guys think? Okay, let's see. It is this one. And it's because like if I compare it, you see the separator width, it's really subtle. But you know, the small details matter. Right. Okay. Yep. Price tag contrast, attention to details. What about this one? Yep. Because green is the color we usually use. Thank you. You are awesome. Thank you so much. This one also looks pretty subtle. So yes, it is because if I compare, you can see the left one is slightly shifted upward a bit. And it looks like we had this one before, but apparently we didn't. This one is also subtle, but for a different reason. So I'm gonna go with this one. And you see it's just because like the 2 hours ago, the subtle text contrast, you can see that this one a little bit better. Next, this is with like, if you look at the images, yep, you'll see that the other one was a little like stretched out weirdly. Right. And this is because we want to keep things consistent. Yep, we love those rounded corners. Okay. All right. So we've played a round of this. Thank you so much for your participation. Okay. So now that we've seen a few of these, we're going to continue talking about good web design practices. Right. So one of the things that we know is that we want to center content both vertically and horizontally. Like sometimes it's nice to just have paragraphs be left aligned, but if we don't have too much text, it's a really good idea to center it on the page. And some of the things that can help us with this are margin and text align. So margin auto just automatically centers your content, and with text align, you can center your text. Next, we have rounded corners. So first, we have these two rectangles here. Learned about them in like preschool or elementary school. And then below that, we have two rectangles with rounded corners. Now this might not seem that big of a deal, but actually the science behind it is that when we see sharp corners, our eyes immediately go to them. So we're focused more on the sharp edges. While if we had something rounded, our eyes are actually focusing on the center, which is where the content actually is. And also sharp corners appear brighter to our eyes. So we can achieve rounded corners using border radius. And for example, this one, we just have 15 pixels. And the higher you have your pixels, the more rounded it gets, the more circular. Another big one is consistency. So if you have any text, icons, or styles that you use, you want to keep them consistent. So if you have text, like similar functioning text, like body paragraphs, you want to keep them all the same. Or if you have different fonts of text within your website, it's best not to exceed like 3 different fonts per page because we don't want to like do too much. Icons, if you have very simplistic icons, but then one icon that's like different, people will notice. So it's a good idea to keep things consistent, and your style for your page as well. Next is image size. So if you have different images on your page, and a really good idea is to crop them so they're all the same size, just so it appears consistent throughout the page. And finally, spacing. If you have different sections on your page, you might want to make sure that the spacing between those different sections is the same. All right, next we have readability. So I'm gonna put an image on here and you guys tell me what it says. Yeah, it's taking a second, isn't it? So the red says creators of great websites. And so, I don't know. I think it is very creative indeed, but something that we want to prioritize is readability. So even though you may have really great and cool aesthetic designs, our main goal is to have the reader or like the viewer do as little brain work as possible. We want them to look at your website and immediately know what's going on. If they do too much thinking, it might not be helpful for us. So prioritize readability above just like the very like out there designs. Next, we're going to talk about avoiding sensory overload. So what is sensory overload? I'll take you through that. So as this page loads, it's very slow, and you'll see why. I want you guys, as I scroll through slowly, to just think about how you feel as you take everything in about this page. There's a reason why it's really slow, you'll see. Okay. All right, looks like we're good to go. So let's start going through this. Again, just like notice how your senses are as we go through. Okay, so we've finally reached the end, but maybe like drop in the chat, like what was that like going through it? For sure. Yeah, that was like really like a lot of things going on. But one thing that we noticed was that orange and blue, they're on the opposite sides of the color wheel. So we have that contrast going on, and contrast is good because it just makes things pop, but we have that all throughout the page. So if things are constantly popping at us, your eyes can get kind of tired looking at that. I know for sure, like there was a lot going on, things are just like moving around. And at the bottom, when we got to this blue part, like when I saw that, my eyes were hurting. So yeah, we're gonna try to avoid that. And the final thing we're talking about is links. So if we want to have something say, learn more about our hackathon on our website, and when they click on our website, it takes them to HackPSU. This is the code that we would have. However, something that we can do is we can also have people open the links on a different page. Now, this is not always necessary, but sometimes I'm sure you've like experienced this before. When I'm trying to open, say I'm on like a tutorial about how to fill out a certain financial legal form. And then when I click it, even though the page has instructions and the form below, when I click on the instructions or like the link for the new form, my whole page changes to the new form and I'm no longer able to see the instructions. And so I have to like back out of there to look at the instructions separately. That's really like just like unnecessary. So to help our viewer, we can add target_blank, and that's just going to open the form on a different page. So for links, just make sure that the actual part that you want to link to something else, it stands out and people can tell that when they click on it, it'll open up something different and it's just not another part of the paragraph. And then you don't always have to open links on new tabs, but it can be helpful, so you can keep this in mind. And finally, we have to offer these additional resources. I know W3 Schools is always a great thing for HTML and CSS if you need extra references or help. And you can also search up topics on YouTube.
Yeah, there's I use free code. Wait, what is it? I use freecodecamp.org, and they have a bunch of YouTube courses. They have like full courses on there, so you can use that too. But,
All right. And that concludes the end of our workshop. So if you have any questions, you can let us know.